All right, hello. This is Group One's presentation on finding, analyzing, and documenting information by Michael Espy, Tyler Arwood, and Carmen Graves. I'm going to be starting us off with finding information. Finding information. You can be successful at finding information, but it takes a lot of thought and effort. The process of information gathering can be broken down into separate steps, but in general, it's more of an art than a science. While finding information, you may not follow the steps completely, but not every situation is going to require the same steps. You have to adapt to the situation at hand and on the fly. You may return to certain steps during the information gathering process, but you're gonna kind of like go as you go and find the information that you need. The steps for finding information are defining the subject, defining the purpose and scope of the research, setting up and getting started, and plan of campaign. Over the next couple of slides, we will go over these steps and turn you into a successful information gatherer. Defining the subject. Though it seems like the obvious thing to do, the first step is finding information, and the first step in finding information is defining the subject. There are a lot of factors going into defining your subject. The information you are looking for could be brought up with your first search, or it could take you long hours of researching different combinations of the same words to find what you're looking for. You may have to use different resources such as a library or Google Scholar. Finding your subject is important. It may be provided by someone who is telling you to look for information, or it may just be for an idea that you had that you want to research. No matter where the information comes from, you need to be specific in what you are searching. Here are a couple of things you can do in order to make sure your time isn't wasted when finding information. You can examine the words used. Do they describe exactly what is being researched? Is there any ambiguity? Phrase the title, topic, or main subject as a question, making sure the question retains relevance and covers all the areas included. This can help the researcher define what it is they are actually doing. Here are an example of a topic for research and the questions you can build from them. Your topic is changes in the Russian manufacturing industry since the formation of the new federation. Some questions you could ask are, what is the history and current state of the Russian manufacturing industry? Or how has the Russian manufacturing industry changed since the formation of the new federation? Rewording the title into questions can lead to further questions, such as what information will I need to be able to answer this question? Or where will I find that information? How can I find out about other research in this subject area? And so on. As you can see, finding information is as simple as asking a question about a topic. But whether or not you're asking the right question can determine how easy it will be for you to find the right information. You need to be able to define what you're looking for. That leads me into our next step, defining the purpose and scope of the research. Defining the purpose and scope of the research. The following questions are questions that will help you narrow down your research and reform your information finding process. Who, what, or who is the research for? Determining who the research for will allow you to tailor your report to the person you're reporting to. This can help define the information you search for by making you crack down on the specifics of what information you gather. Depending on who the research is for may change how much information you are looking for and how specific you have to be. Knowing who your research is for can determine what type of lingo you use. Are you using jargon and academic level writing skills? Or are you going to keep it more of a plain English report? What type of document will the finishing product be? For example, a doctoral thesis or a company report. The type of document may decide what levels of information you will attain and how deep into that information you will be willing to go. How much context you will need and how much extra information are you willing to add in order to state your case. Another question is, what level of detail is necessary? Every question you ask determines the level of detail, but it is still important to keep this in mind when answering the questions. How much time is available? Do you have enough time to go in depth into the information, or do you need to skim parts and just pick out the main details? How current does the information need to be? What's the time frame? What is the time frame you're researching? If you're looking for information to build a house, make sure you're not looking at building codes from the early 1900s. How current your information needs to be is extremely important detail that you need to keep in mind. All these are good questions to keep in mind when narrowing your search. Make sure that at the end of the day, you are choosing the right amount of information that you need. Setting up and getting started. The successful researcher will do preliminary work to find information before embarking on the task. Some examples of preliminary work you can do is obtaining a library card, finding out entitlements like loans, obtaining a necessary username or passwords, or identifying appropriate individuals who may be able to offer help like a librarian. Identify your available services and check hours of operation. Being able to know what you're looking for is one thing, but finding it is another thing. Making sure you know when places open is essential to being able to access information. Maybe they close early and you don't have enough time to check the book out that you need for the weekend. And suddenly all your information has to be pushed back a week because you don't have the information you need for the weekend. Things like this can hurt your ability to find information on time. Making sure you have the right equipment is essential as well. If you don't have internet access, your search could be over before it started. Though having access to internet is pretty standard nowadays, it can still get in the way if your internet is out or isn't fast enough or isn't working. Some papers need to be printed, and having access to a printer can make or break your assignment. Needs are not stationary. They will change. So take these as a starting point, but make sure you do your preliminary work before starting your project and figure out all the things you need to do ahead of time. Plan of campaign. The planning for finding research is much like a detective work on solving a case. The leading detective on the case will gather intelligence on the individual suspects, identify a paper trail, or prepare a plan of action for when they catch the suspect. Similar tasks can be a part of the information gathering process. Meticulous planning is essential to creating a good report. Just stumbling through websites can work, but isn't consistent and shouldn't be relied upon. The process itself will vary depending on the overall task, but make sure to plan accordingly with whatever project you're working on. Find your website and local credible sources that have the information you're looking for. You want to do work before starting on your report. You want to do work before starting on your report or essay. If you have to find the information while you're writing the essay, it will be a much more difficult process. If you start at last minute, you may not have enough time to get it done. So start early, stay on task. Information rabbit holes can suck you in and take away your attention from the original objective. Defining the subject will help you stay on task and can determine how much information you really need. This concludes my portion of the presentation. Remember, planning is key to success. Thank you. Here are my sites for the information that I gathered. And here's analyzing information about Tyler Arwood.
I'm Tyler Arwood, and I'll be continuing the presentation with analyzing information. Next slide. In professional writing, the most important work often happens before a word is even typed. It occurs in what researchers call a black box known as analysis. As a professional writer, you aren't just a messenger delivering data, you are an analyst. Writing is a complex problem-solving process that requires us to juggle many different resources and constraints simultaneously. Your primary job is to take raw material and transform it into something meaningful for your organization. Today, I am going to walk you through the 3 stages of this transformation: how we synthesize ideas, how we filter for complexity, and how we map out a structure that leads to real-world action. Next slide. The first step of analysis is understanding the difference between summarizing and synthesizing. According to research in learning to write synthesis texts, synthesis is a complex process of knowledge transformation. It's not just listing what source A and source B said in a row. Instead, analysis at this stage requires 3 specific actions: selecting, organizing, and connecting. You are looking at your sources and identifying where they overlap, where they conflict, and where they support each other. You are essentially chewing on the information until you can create a new integrated message. This process allows you to move from being a reporter who tells facts to an expert who provides valuable insights that didn't exist in any of those individual sources. Next slide. Once we have our ideas, we move into integrative complexity. This is the stage where you analyze information through the lens of your audience's needs. A high-level analyst practices differentiation, which is the ability to recognize that a single problem has multiple distinct dimensions. For instance, you might analyze a project's financial cost while simultaneously analyzing its ethical or operational impact. You are looking for the tension and the differences between these viewpoints. The second half of this is integration, analyzing how those different views work together. By doing this mental work, you handle the heavy lifting for the reader. You're weighing the pros and the cons and looking for connections so the reader has a clear path forward rather than a one-sided story. Next slide. The final stage of analysis is building the structural skeleton for your writing. Research shows that writing quality is significantly improved when we use cognitive tools, like concept mapping during the planning stage. We begin with a descriptive map, which is a brainstorming tool used to pull out all of the information and prior knowledge we have on a topic. Once that information is visible, we move to a classification map where we analyze that raw data and group it into logical categories like sorting ideas into pros versus cons. Finally, we build an argumentation map. This is our final writing plan, and we are analyzing the best way to lead the reader from the initial problem to our final conclusion. By analyzing the structure before we write, we ensure that the document is logically sound and easy for a busy professional to follow. Next slide. Professional writing is much more about thinking than it is about typing. By focusing on how we synthesize ideas, how we filter for complexity, and how we map out our structure, we move beyond just sharing information, providing the clarity and direction that organizations need to make effective decisions. These are my sources. That concludes my part of the presentation. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Carmen Graves, and today we're going to talk about documenting information, a task that many people view as a chore, but is actually one of the most critical assets in any professional environment. We often think of documentation as just writing things down, but in reality, it is the process of capturing the who, what, where, and most importantly, the why of our work. Done correctly, it ensures that our efforts are clear, reproducible, and compliant with industry standards. Next slide. Beyond just helping our future selves, documentation provides clarity, removing the guesswork from decision making. It ensures reproducibility, meaning if you were to leave a project today, someone else could step in and achieve the exact same results. Finally, it provides accountability. In the event of an audit or legal inquiry, a solid paper trail isn't just helpful, it's your primary line of defense. Proper documentation involves the systematic capture and storage of data, providing a reliable record of processes and decisions to ensure compliance and auditability. Next slide. To make documentation effective, we rely on, why we document. So documentation is more than just taking notes. It is the institutional memory of a project. Clarity eliminates ambiguity in decision making. Reproducibility allows others to achieve the same results using the same methods. Accountability provides a paper trail. Efficiency reduces the time spent relearning past lessons. Next slide. The three pillars of data integrity. To make documentation effective, we rely on these three pillars. The first is to capture. You have to record information at the moment of origin. If you wait a week to document a meeting or test result, you're relying on memory, which is famously unreliable. Organization. Information is only useful if it is findable. This means using standardized naming conventions so we aren't searching for difficultly named documents, such as those with long names and or symbols in the title. Storage. We need secure version controlled environments, whether it is a cloud drive or an ERP system. The data must be protected and backed up. Next slide. So what to include? Comprehensive documentation requires three specific layers. The sources, where did the raw data come from? Primary versus secondary. The process, what steps were taken to reach the conclusion? And the decisions. Why was a specific path chosen over others? To do this successfully, you have to follow best practices, document as you go, use templates to stay consistent, and review your documents periodically. Information that isn't updated quickly becomes misinformation. Next slide. The best practices is to be concurrent, to standardize, review, and accessibility to ensure the right people can find the information when they need it. Keep it simple, searchable, and sustainable. Next slide. These are my sources, my works cited. By following these frameworks, we turn raw data into reliable record of truth. Thank you for listening to our presentation.